Well, dear Paul, Carlo, ladies and gentlemen, you just said that I had been with someone much more important. He seems to consider you as very important because he even let me leave the meeting with him earlier than planned. It was the Grand Duke, and so he knew I was coming here, and he agreed fully to let me leave that meeting a little bit earlier. So you see, I think you are very important people too for the Luxembourgish government and even the Grand Duke. More than a year has passed since I presented to the very same audience the features of the simplified private limited company, or SARLS. I would like to really warmly thank you and for giving me again the opportunity to share with you the progress made on this new instrument. The good thing is what I kind of promised you a year ago is today reality. The basic ideas and the basic features haven't changed. So the job on that point has been done, and I'm very happy about it. A lot has already been said by Carl, by Carlo, but I know that other people too have contributed to convince government. It took quite a long time. Carlo mentioned 6 years. So I'm not claiming to be the father of the idea, definitely not. Other people have done that. They have done it with success, and I'm very happy to see that they are proud of the result. That is not always the case in politics. In this case, nobody criticized the idea. The opposite is true. So thank you very much for the input. Thank you for the idea and for pushing the idea over all those years to those people, like, for example, Carlo Thelen, that made finally the coming through of this idea possible. As you know, the draft bill creating the SARLS has been filed with the Parliament in February 2015, and following publication of the draft bill, professional chambers and the State Council submitted their opinions quite quickly, making it possible to carry out the legislative procedure in a good pace and enabling the Parliament to adopt the bill, which has become the law of the 23rd of July 2016. With this regard, it is important to note that whereas the law on the SARLS was adopted in July 2016, it will only enter into force on the 16th of January 2017. Indeed, it needs to be reminded that several technical adaptations need to be done in order to guarantee that the system is fully operational. In this regard, an implementing regulation with the objective to tackle these questions has been submitted already to the State Council, and we have received its opinion, as well as those from several professional chambers. My department has now considered all the questions and observations raised in these opinions, and is currently finalizing the draft regulation, which should be and has to be adopted before the end of this year. I would like to recall an important question that had been raised last year on the SARLS at the American Chamber of Commerce. The Chambre des Salariés had indeed expressed its concern in its public opinion that the introduction of the simplified SARL would give rise to major frauds by means of the so-called fake self-employment. To reassure you, this question has been discussed at the Parliament, and I have consulted my colleague, the Minister of Labour, in order to ensure that this should not be an issue hindering the introduction of the SARLS in our company law. And as I had indicated in front of this audience, the consultation resulted in the common view that the question of the fake self-employment is a horizontal issue which could arise in any form of company, so that the SARLS law was certainly not the right, or at least not the only place to tackle this question. This has been by now acknowledged, and we could move to the vote of the law after debating this point. Now, as I just mentioned, the draft regulation is close to being finalized. The objective of this regulation is to implement the law on the SARLS, and in particular to specify the practical rules applicable when setting up a SARLS. The necessity to provide for specific rules is mostly linked to the following features that I'm going to develop. which differ from the general regime applicable to the classic SARL. First, the possibility to set up an SARLS by means of a private deed, Carl mentioned it, thus making optional the recourse to a notary. Secondly, the fact that only natural persons may be founders or shareholders of an SARLS. Third, the fact that a natural person can only hold shares of one simplified SARL at the same time. And finally, the fact that a SARLS may only exercise activities for which a business permit is required. As it is already possible for the limited partnership, Société en Commandite Simple, or the cooperative company, Société Coopérative, amongst others, the new law now opens the possibility for the SARLS to be formed by the means of a notarial or private deed. In other words, although it is a novelty for the private company, limited by shares in its simplified version, you can see that this procedure is already known in our company law. Of course, and it needs to be underlined, the use of a private deed is only a possibility. A founder who wishes to proceed with a notary will still be able to do so. But in case the SARLS is formed by way of a private deed, the draft regulation foresees that the Luxembourg Trade and Company Register will have to check whether the private deed of constitution contains the mandatory indications. Moreover, the fact that only a natural person can be a founder of or a shareholder implies that the Luxembourg Trade and Company Register will also have to check whether this condition is fulfilled. In order to make this possible, the draft regulation will grant power to the Trade and Company Register to refuse any registration of a SARLS in the case where the founder is a legal person or where the founder is a natural person but already a shareholder of another SARLS. In addition, and as I already mentioned, the SARLS to be formed may only carry out activities for which a business permit is needed in accordance with the law of the 2nd of September 2011 governing the access to the professions of skilled craftsman, trader, manufacturer, as well as to certain liberal professions. Now you may ask how the Trade and Company Register will be able to check this condition upon registration of the company. In order to work out a simple, fluent system, the Ministry of Justice worked closely together with the State Center for Information Technology, CTIE, the Trade and Company Register, and the Ministry of Economy. The new mechanism can be summarized as follows. The process for obtaining a business license shall be carried out upfront by the founders with the Ministry of Economy. Once the permit has been obtained, the registration of the SARLS with the Trade and Company Register will be possible. First of all, the new founder will have to provide the Trade and Company Register with his or her identification number provided on the basis of the law dated 19th June 2013 on the identification of natural persons. This number will of course not be public and is only needed for the purpose of the registering. However, in case a new founder has not obtained yet such an identification number, which could be the case, for example, for a non-resident person, he or she will be provided with an identification number in accordance with the 2013 law on identification at the time of the registration of the SARLS with the Company and Trade Register. In correlation with the obligation to provide their identification number, the new founder will have to file a copy of the identity card or any other equivalent identification paper if the founder is not a resident. Now, once the SARLS has been formed, it is to be mentioned that the law on the SARLS will apply only if specific rules have been provided for the SARLS. Otherwise, all the rules applicable to the classic SARL shall apply. That is very clear in the law. For example, with respect to the management of such a company, if you look at the new Article 202.6 in the SARLS law, it is foreseen that only natural persons can become the manager, gérant, of such a company. As this is the only specific rule, the management of the SARLS will be governed for all other issues by the general rules governing the classic SARL. So basically, you have to bear in mind both laws at the same time. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, the legal framework applying to the SARLS has been carefully designed, debated, in order to make this new instrument as simple as possible, and I'm confident that it will be a success. The future will tell us soon, not later than the 16th of January 2017, and maybe we will meet again in 1 year to have a picture of the first practical experiences made after the entry into force of the new law. I just want to share my optimism with all the optimism that already has been expressed. It is not a wonder solution, a miracle solution. It is not designed for all the purposes. It's a choice that everyone has to make when starting his business. It is a new option. It is a new complementary option. And everyone has to decide for himself, and maybe he will get a good piece of advice at the House of Entrepreneurship when thinking about which form the company should take. But I'm convinced that it is a very useful new tool that gives opportunities that can be seized. It's not an obligation, it's just a possibility. One more to accompany your choices.